So it works, but it's too heavy to flip one-handed like I suspected, so this will be a non-action oriented video. So as you can see here, the joiner fits on the bottom along with the wood that I was hoping to put there, or some of it. The sanders fit attached to the table. They're actually bolted in, and it flips. So the way I flip it is I have my workspace, and then I flip these forward up around to the top, and then the sanders are on top. Turns out this corner, I think this 2x4 on this end was twisted some. I knew it was the one that was slightly out of alignment and somewhat friction fitting before. When I attached all the rest of the framework down here for the bottom shelf, this came to end up being a very solid friction fit. As you can sort of see right there, and you can also see this slightly darker spot on the 2x4 is actually where it was rubbing. So it's rubbing enough that it made the 2x4 darker as it was smoothing it off. But that's okay, because it still moves, and all I had to do was take a rasp and rasp off this top so it didn't clunk and hit the end. But the benefit of this, it being a friction fit on this corner, is I can actually have all the pins pulled and it will stay there until I actually push it and get it to go past. So either in this orientation or with the sanders on top, if I pull all the pins, it'll sit there and wait until I actually push and get it to move. So that's way better than having it flip on its own. So what I did was, I think these are 3/8 inch bolts, hex head bolts. So I have washers here, and those are countersunk. And then if I can show up underneath, since this is the much heavier sander, and there's actually a gap, there's a rubber foot that's under this metal piece that's hollow on the bottom. So I have the bolt coming down through, and then I put a washer and another nut, so it's bolted. That bolts, or I should say all 4 bolts for this sander are bolted to the table. Then I put the rubber feet down over, and then I set the sander down over, and luckily I did line that up correctly because that was a challenge anyway. And then I have 2 bolts on the side, so this is definitely not going anywhere. The other sander only has 3 bolts, 1 here and 2 on the other side. And if we come over on this side, now, assuming I can get this over here and show, we can see, let's see, somewhere in here. Come on. There we go. Alright, so this screw with the washer is new. I drilled through here and got a bolt of the right size, because the original piece of plastic that Ryobi had on this sander was held on by 2 bolts onto the front here. So that bolt with the washer actually goes from here straight through in and screws into the actual bolt hole. So this is now much more solidly attached because I had to just set it down on top of the bolts that are attached up through the frame, whereas previously there were screws holding this board onto the sander through those same holes. So previously there were screws coming into the board, now there's just bolts that you can sort of see right there and over there on the other side that are sort of sticking there, and this bolt here is actually what's holding it on securely. So that's all good. And then the one other thing that I'm going to do, but I would need to go to Home Depot or something for next because I don't have any here, is get a 2-foot by 4-foot piece of what they call hardboard. It's that really thin, high density, dark, usually dark brown board like they normally use for cabinet backs. I'm going to get a piece of that, and since everything is now sunken in and countersunk, I can just put that on top and have a nice flat surface, and then use that as a work table. And that way it'll be nice and smooth for like glue ups and that sort of thing. So yeah, that should work good. And so that was the project for this weekend, was to get those things attached and all sorted and ready to go. There'll be a future project, I'm sure, for putting this table on and then gluing stuff up. I'm not sure that's worth a video, but this at least I think was, because it works and the wheels are all done, the shelf is done. So yeah, I don't think, and I decided not to put a brace underneath. It's not going anywhere. There's so many connections for that piece of plywood underneath with the number of pocket screws, and it's only 2 foot wide. So, and there's never going to be, I mean, I could probably stand in one spot with 200 plus pounds and it might bow. There's never going to be 200 pounds in one spot on there. It's always pretty much just going to be that, which is really light. So I don't need to brace it. And with all of the pins in, it's very stable. So, and especially because even with this very uneven floor, you can see it's sort of lower in the center and higher on the ends. That's not the 2x4. That's the fact that this floor is worn out, and that's what happens with cement. But yeah, it works, and that's what it looks like when the pieces are in the down position for the sanders. So I'm very happy with it, and yeah, hopefully it'll be a much more fun and useful setup than what I had before, which was manually moving these things around all over the place every time I wanted to use something. So thanks.